All right, y'all, it's Heather here with Underwater Panther. We have side railed into a new little mini series. Yeah, so we've been going over quite a bit, and I had everything. Okay, there it is. I had everything organized where I wanted all of my images. And now I am side railing myself. So this is the overall master of everything that we've been going through on this channel recently. So I've been breaking down the overall. I have fire cider here, and I might have to take a shot because I am losing my voice. Allergies are absolutely terrible. All right, so and I have to look at this because I can't on my phone because I can't see it on my screen. All right, so on this channel, I have literally been going through all of the archetypes. I do combine astrology with psychology, so let's start there briefly. So this is an archetype, a personality type, foundationally speaking. And I'm going, oops, I pushed the wrong button. I'm going to make an edit real quick if I can. Okay. So what you're looking at is a archetype. So this is considered the ego. The ego astro-psychologically is broken down into 4 sections. So astrologically, you have the ruler, exaltation, left field, and fall. Psychologically, you have the hero, parent, child, inferior cognitive function. I have added in the inner and outer masculine and feminine quadrants, as well as the distortion order of those quadrants through the development of the archetype, through their age development. So for Pisces, for example, they develop the inner feminine, hero, and ruling Jupiter and Neptune between the ages of 1 and 12. The parent, FE parent, Venus, and outer feminine quadrant is developed between the ages of 12 and 20. The inner masculine with TI child and Mercury in left field is developed between the ages of 20 and 30. The inferior with Earth and fall and outer masculine is normally developed between the ages of 30 and 35. So lifelong thing here going on with spiritual, emotional, mental, cognitive development. A very long process, and you're never going to get to the end. You're never going to be fully integrated or healed. So chill out and let's go on this journey together. All right, so lately I've been going over the overall polarity of the archetype, all of the archetypes. So Pisces, for example, is the most feminine in the system overall. So that polarity represents the direction of force and containment. And then my last series, I went over moral load bearing, where consequence lands within each archetype. And I also went over the inner and outer masculine and feminine development through the quadrants, which expresses how energy lands and expresses, depending on if you're talking about distortion, healthy order, or reintegration. So I have jammed in so much information into each video the last couple of months because I am updating, upgrading, running my system. I already combined multiple systems together, but now I have laid on 6 more axes through which I'm running each archetype through. So my videos lately have been extremely dense, but they're very foundational. So I will be doing this for another couple of months, and then I will bring it back out into being more mainstream and playful. I want to lay these foundations first. All right. So now where we are going, I'm going to be talking about identity capture. So we're focused more on the age of 30 and beyond when we start talking about identity capture, but do keep in mind that can happen at any age. which it does. I mean, the way the world is set up now is not what it used to be. It never will be what it used to be. And that is a whole nother video in itself. So all the pillars of society have pretty much been captured. And so we're just, it's just sad state of affairs. All right, anyway, so we are going into talking about identity capture after the age of 30. And so I am introducing the BITE system, or, it's an overall how the psyche, how identity capture enters the psyche. So BITE, I think, was introduced to the collective by Stephen. I keep getting his name wrong. It's not Hansen, it's like Hassan, Stephen Hassan. And so BITE represents behavior, information, thought, and emotion. So that's the entry point of identity capture. We will be going through that. We will layer in the inner and outer masculine and feminine quadrants where the archetype is the most weak with BITE. And then we are adding on the spiritual layer with talking about how deep an identity is captured, how deep a person's identity has been captured. And that deals with oppression, obsession, and possession. That is from Chad Reppinger. He is a Catholic priest, I believe, and his work, I just got into his work lately. So that's an awesome lens to view this all with. So there are different depths of capture spiritually. There are entry points to the identity capture with the psyche. And then I will be running each archetype through my Native American Mandela. I just sat here for months, 7 months, trying to figure out how I am going to incorporate my Native American teachings in with the psychological teachings, and I figured it out finally. So I am working on that series, and we are now in like a bridge point because I am still honing in on some things. And so now we are talking about Mercury and communication between all of the archetypes. So quick disclaimer after the huge overview that I didn't even plan on doing. So the quick disclaimer, this video specifically is talking about the Mercury placement in your chart or whoever you are cross-watching for after the age of 30. So if you're dealing with someone 30 and below, look at their sun sign, their ego. If you are dealing with somebody 30 and above, look at their Mercury placement, thinking and communication. All right, so I don't even know if I introduced myself. Heather here with Underwater Panther. I'm going to take down the key card briefly. All right, so I want to describe what Underwater Panther is. I finally feel like I'm stepping into Underwater Panther after a decade of insane book writing, studying, combining many systems together. So it's just kind of like a pat on my own back to congratulate myself for finally really, truly being proud of the work that I've done. I've only just begun. It's been 10 years, and I will probably say that in the next 10 years. So Underwater Panther isn't just a name. It's obviously a Native American myth as well. It's a way of seeing. Underwater Panther represents the part of you that doesn't panic when things get unclear, when conversations shift, or when people stop making sense. Underwater Panther moves beneath the surface into the pressure most people avoid. The space where words stop matching reality, where emotion starts distorting perception, and where identity quietly reshapes itself to stay intact. It's calm there, controlled, observing without reacting, tracking what's actually happening instead of getting pulled into what it looks like. Because the truth isn't gone in those moments. It's just buried under layers of protection, fear, and distortion. Underwater Panther is the ability to go there without losing yourself, to map what's breaking without becoming it, and to come back with clarity when everything else feels confusing. It's precision over chaos, depth over noise, and the quiet kind of awareness that doesn't need to force anything. because it already sees what's real. So it's very spiritual. It's very intellectual. I am an Aquarian or INTJ mind, Mercury. Aries rising here. I do have major Pisces placements that I don't like to brag about. I am over the age of 30, so I am really heavy into my Mercury, and so that's another huge reason why I'm making this little mini series. There's just many reasons. So tonight we are narrowing in. All right, so before we get into tonight's video, I do need to bring up what we have been talking about. Okay, so this is the tier system. I like to make tier systems to help organize. All right, so before we get into tonight's video, I need to tighten the frame first, because if you did not watch my prior video breaking down all 12 archetypes through their communication stabilization angles, go watch that first. So I do want to also say that for some reason I've been having insane glitching issues on my OBS software. I don't know why. I've been through every angle of trying to figure it out. It's not storage, it's not settings. Like, I've gone through all my settings. I'm not really sure. I'm normally pretty good at troubleshooting and I cannot figure it out. So that video is solid. When I have multiple archetypes up on the screen at one time, it will start glitching out a little bit, and then it will be fine. It'll go back to normal after I bring most of the images off my screen. I'm a very visual person, so it's very frustrating. The audio goes along, it's just the video that glitches. So I am working on that currently. Okay, so just another little disclaimer. All right, so if you do watch that video, just realize when I've got 3 archetypes up on the screen, the video glitches, the audio is fine, and then I break down each individual archetype through the 12 archetypes, then the video goes back to normal. So not really sure what's going on yet. All right, so that video lays the foundation for everything I'm doing here. I walk through how each archetype stabilizes under pressure, where communication breaks, and why some people move reality, some protect structure, some force it, and some contain it. That was the wide map. So tonight we are narrowing in. You know, it's just wild how I've progressed over the last year with this work. At first I'm like, man, this is annoying. I'm gonna have to make like a mini series in between my series. And it just makes sense, really. Like, it happened for a reason that I wasn't fully done with my next series, and here we are. So the thinking and communication realm is extremely important. Now I'm going to take a shot of this fire cider, rosemary, pineapple, and ginger. My throat's killing me. I have insane allergies, and I've never tasted this before, so cheers. I'm going to take a little swig of this. Hopefully it'll help my throat. All right, 1, 2, 3, go. Shoot. Whew. Actually, it's not that bad. Actually, it tastes pretty decent, but it's got a little bit of a bite to it. Fire cider. I've been on a fire cider and honey kick lately. I've been talking a lot. Like, these videos turn out to be an hour and a half long, and I like lose my voice by the end. All right, so tonight I want to isolate one specific distortion channel that shows up over and over in conversations, especially, oh my God, my favorite song came on. Oh, this song got me through some times, man. Whew. I love this song so much. Okay, so we're talking about tier 1. That is a distortion channel that shows up over and over in conversation, especially when truth, meaning, morality, feeling, and interpretation start blending together. And that is the Mercury-Jupiter distortion triangle. This is Gemini, Pisces, and Sagittarius, tier 1. So I'm going to take this off the screen and put my banner back up. Like and subscribe. I made a banner tonight just before I started this video to remind myself to say like and subscribe, please. All right, so this is where it's probably going to start glitching a wee little, but it's very important for referencing images. Oops, wrong one. Where's my other one at? All right, so this is tier 1. And I'm going to bring that back down, note to self. So this is tier 1. Gemini, ENTJ, Pisces, INFJ, Sagittarius, ISTJ. 3 archetypes dealing with the same 2 forces. Mercury represents processing, articulation, cognition, and precision. Jupiter represents meaning, expansion, belief, and truth-seeking. So Gemini and Pisces both loop between Mercury and Jupiter heavily, all the time. Same axis, same ingredients. Completely different breakdown. Gemini leads with Mercury and destabilizes through motion. Pisces leads with Jupiter and destabilizes through emotional meaning. Sagittarius leads with truth testing and destabilizes through moral positioning and delayed correction. And what all 3 have in common is this: they process reality without early enough anchoring. That is the key. Gemini does not anchor meaning before it moves it. Pisces does not anchor reality before it feels it. Sagittarius does not anchor relational space before it frames it. So this is not just a video about communication styles. This is a video about what happens when communication stops being a container for shared reality and starts becoming a tool for stabilization, protection, distortion, and control. That is where people get confused. That is where the frame shifts, and that is where conversations stop resolving anything. Tonight, I'm going to break down exactly how each archetype does this. So how Gemini shifts interpretation, how Pisces shifts the conversation into emotional reality, and how Sagittarius corners people through moral framing, then steps back from owning it. Because once you see the pattern across all these 3 archetypes, you stop reacting to the content alone and you start tracking the structure of the conversation itself. And that is where real control begins. All right, so I am going to, God, this is so bad glitching. All right. Now, I do also want to, I'm going to have to move these around a little bit. I want to do a briefing in case you did not see the last video. I've made it a habit, and now it's something that I like to do and want to do. All right. So I'm going to bring up my key card here and go over the briefing on this specific tier. So overall, some people don't argue with you directly. That might be a little too big. Let me minimize that down a little. After I make this, I'm going to have to really sit here and try to figure out what is going on with this glitching. I've already spent like 30, 40 minutes on trying to figure it out, and I just can't. So some people don't argue with you directly. They change the structure of reality while you're talking. Others don't change reality at all. They protect something inside it. And if you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, what the hell just happened? You didn't lose the argument, you lost the frame. Because what most people don't understand is this: communication is not just about words. It is not just about tone, timing, or delivery. Those things matter, but they are surface level. What actually determines the outcome of a conversation is this: where your system goes. When I say system, I'm talking about these 7 to 10 systems I combined together into these archetypes, these key cards. There's nervous system, there's psychology, there's astrology, there's spirituality, there's emotion, there's thinking, there's behavior, action, inner, outer, masculine. There is a crap ton going on, so I just say system. That is your system. Systems in systems in systems. That is what we are. That's what the world is. Okay, so Where was I? Where your system goes when it feels pressure. So those things matter, but they are surface level. What actually determines the outcome of the conversation is this: where your system goes when it feels pressure. Your nervous systems, your feeling, your thoughts, all of that, your insecurities, weaknesses, strengths. So, because the moment tension enters the room, people stop communicating to connect and start communicating to stabilize themselves. And every archetype stabilizes at a different layer of reality. So, we are currently in tier 1, which moves reality itself. So Gemini loses stability in meaning and moves language. Pisces loses stability in emotion and dissolves reality. Sagittarius loses stability in ownership and then universalizes. Sagittarius is the absolute reason. I would say Gemini is the first reason, but I wouldn't have been able to figure this out 10 years ago. Currently, what has kicked this miniseries off is Sagittarius. I am raising a Sagittarius through and through. Ego, Mercury. I always say Pisces and Sagittarius, they are hot messes, and Sagittarius is the external version of Pisces. It's absolutely hysterical, and it's even funnier when you're sitting here staring at their key cards together. So anyway, Sag, this is all your fault. Own it. Okay. All right. So anyway, tier 1, they are the frame destabilizers. So this is the highest distortion in my ranking system here. All right, so reality itself becomes unstable. Reality doesn't hold. These archetypes don't just struggle to communicate, they move the frame while you are inside it. This is not because they are aggressive, but because they remove the conditions required for resolution. You are not debating facts here. You are trying to hold onto something that refuses to stay still. This is the most disorienting tier to deal with because the conversation itself never stabilizes. You are not arguing facts. You are not resolving issues. You are trying to stand on ground that keeps shifting underneath you. I love intellectual stimulation, debate, whatever you want to call it. I absolutely love like seeing how people think. And so this is a very playful topic for myself. It can be absolutely frustrating. Do not get me wrong, it can be absolutely frustrating, but overall, like, I'm an Aquarian mind. Like, I in the 11th house, like, I don't really care to change people's minds about anything. I want to meet people where they are, truly, on the deepest level. That's probably my Pisces Venus in the 12th house. I just want to meet people where they are. And it can be very frustrating when you cannot get on the same page. Like, regardless of beliefs or whatever, like, if you're trying to just have a surface level conversation and you're like, what the hell happened? Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. So anyways, all right, so breaking Gemini down. This is just an overview briefing. This was in the last video. So I'm going to be breaking these down more in depth compared to the last video. All right, so Gemini shifts meaning, reframes in real time, no stable definition. The point never lands. So Gemini does not hold meaning still. Gemini processes in real time. They speak, organize, reframe, reinterpret, and pivot faster than most people can track. So every time you think you've landed a point, Gemini has already moved it. You can kind of, moving the goalpost. That's what I called it. 8 years ago? I'm like, to me it was like moving the goalpost. Like, what is this? Like, what are we even talking about? Like, why can I know? It's just, Pisces is like a slippery fish. Gemini is like trying to slap and stick jello on the wall. Like, all of these archetypes are really like just slippery in their own ways, in their own element. It's wild. So every time you think you've landed a point, Gemini has already moved it. Not necessarily to deceive you, but because the system itself does not stay fixed long enough for anything to lock in. So now you're not debating, you're chasing language. And the faster you try to pin it down, the faster it moves. Air sign. It's like trying to catch wind in your hands. All right, so Pisces shifts into emotional reality, merges feeling with fact, and dissolves structure. The issue disappears into emotion. Pisces doesn't move meaning, it dissolves it. Pisces doesn't separate what happened from how it felt. So you bring a concrete issue, and Pisces experiences an emotional impact. And once that happens, the conversation is no longer about reality, it's about the feeling. You try to return to the issue, but now you're navigating an emotional field that has replaced it. So the original point disappears. Not because Pisces is avoiding it consciously, but because their system merged with it. The issue dissolves into experience. This is way too country for me. I need some. All right, so anyways, I need some like gangster. We're talking about the gangsters of the zodiac right now. The freaking spiritual gangsters. Like for real. Y'all are mutable. You can all of these signs they can get along, not really get along. They have a very broad social network. I'll put it that way. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Mutable. They're chameleons. These are the chameleons. They're the mirrors. You can never tell exactly what the hell is going on. They're just like chameleons. All right, so I'm getting hot. One moment. All right, I gotta turn my freaking heating blanket off. It's just getting hot all of a sudden. I'm getting excited. I'm gonna start eating the microphone next. Okay, so Sagittarius shifts into moral framing. Universalizes personal judgment, avoids direct ownership. You're now defending yourself inside their philosophy. They're the soapbox preachers. Do as I say, not as I do. Sagittarius is something different. Sagittarius doesn't move or dissolve reality. Sagittarius elevates it. It universalizes it. Instead of saying something directly, they reframe it into a moral principle. For example, people should take accountability. At some point, people need to grow. And now you are no longer responding to a personal statement. You are defending yourself inside a moral frame that was never owned directly. That's the trap, because if you push back, you look defensive. If you don't, you accept the implication. That's not miscommunication, that is structural positioning. So core failure, truth never stabilizes. Tier 1 does not lose arguments. They remove the ground you were standing on. All right, so now I feel better. All right, so I haven't thought this far ahead as to where I want to put everything. I think I'm just going to do this for a moment because I still need them up on the screen here. All right. I could be like everyone else and do the, what do you call it? Scene transition. I just don't care that much, to be honest. All right, hopefully this ain't glitchier than I'll get out. All right, so Gemini, Mercury dominant, Jupiter. Is Jupiter dominant, or I'm sorry, Gemini is, yeah, Mercury dominant. So Gemini, Mercury dominant, Jupiter destabilizing. Pisces, Jupiter dominant, Mercury internalized. Sagittarius is Jupiter dominant, Mercury delayed, and corrective. All three are dealing with the same forces. Mercury, processing, articulation, cognition, and precision. Jupiter, meaning, expansion, belief, truth-seeking. But each one missequences them differently, and that's why all three can loop. So psychologically, they say that you loop between your hero and child cognitive functions. If you see the plus signs and then negative minus signs, the plus signs, you have more cognitive energy to utilize those cognitive functions. The negative, parent and inferior cognitive functions, they cost more energy to use, psychologically speaking, and so it's harder, and so we don't tend to want to use those functions for various reasons, so we do loop between hero and child. because it's easier and that's our go-to. All right. All right, so all three process reality without early identity anchoring, but how they fail is completely different. So Sagittarius is not scattered like Gemini and does not dissolve like Pisces. Sagittarius are scattered in an action-oriented way, not a mental talking way, FYI. All of these signs are hot messes in their own way. So Sagittarius is trial-based truth. They do not trust ideas like Gemini or feelings like Pisces. Sagittarius trust what survives reality. All right, so I'm starting with Sagittarius because it's their fault I am in this entire mini series in the first place. All right. I like to say it's their fault because they're not gonna take that, and it's gonna be irritating, and I think it's hilarious. All right, so Sagittarius, here we are. All right, so Sagittarius does not struggle with truth itself. In fact, truth is one of the most central organizing forces in this system. What Sagittarius struggles with is not whether something is true, but how that truth is delivered, timed, and held when another person is involved, especially under pressure. So they can be very, it's interesting because they are very blunt and direct. I don't know why I don't do myself a service and pull these cards up. I need to print these off. All right, so I'm just going to sit here with that actually up so I can see it. I do need a drink already. All right, so Sagittarius, they are very blunt when it comes to emotional things. They don't get into the emotional realm in depth. It's topical and it's more detached when it comes to emotions, dealing with their own or others. They have Effie inferior, that is their outer feminine. And so they're more about action, doing things, speaking their own truth. When it comes to dealing with emotions in a relationship, they are not blunt and direct. They are more detached and evasive, if that makes sense. They have a very low bandwidth for the emotional and feeling realm. Very low bandwidth. It isn't in the inferior, and they are a fire sign. So it comes across like they like to express their own feelings and emotions. They're expressive about that. It just depends. God, it's hard to describe. Like when they're impatient, they're very, very impatient. And they can get upset very easily. They're very sensitive, actually, but they're over it quickly. But when it comes to like super being in depth and like sitting on it and talking about it, they just want to like get it out and move on. They're not going to sit here and have like crying fest and whatever. So at a structural level, fire cider. It's like, all right, so at a structural level, Sagittarius is built to verify reality through internal logic first, inner masculine, and then test that logic through real world interaction, outer masculine. This creates a personality that feels very grounded in what is correct, accurate, or holding up under scrutiny. So they are concrete by nature and their temperament. So they do care about truth and facts. So when Sagittarius speaks, it is rarely guessing. Sagittarius is usually speaking from something they have already internally tested and validated. But this is where the relational distortion begins. Because when truth is internally verified before relational engagement, So they're also pragmatic. They don't check in with other people when making decisions. They just go do the thing and talk about it afterwards. They're very freedom based in their movement. All right, so where was I? Because when truth is internally verified before relational engagement, Sagittarius often enters the interaction as a conclusion. They give their conclusion instead of a shared process. So Sagittarius is not entering the conversation to explore what is true together. They are often entering having already decided what is true and then presenting it. And that subtle difference is what shifts truth into positioning. So what happens over time? In the beginning, this can actually feel refreshing. Sagittarius comes across as direct, honest, and principled. There is a sense that they are not playing games, they're not hiding, they're not manipulating emotionally. They see what they say what they see, they call things out, they move quickly to clarify. But over time, especially in close relationships, something begins to change in how that truth is experienced. Because when conflict arises, Sagittarius does not naturally shift into relational containment first. They do not slow down and ask, what is happening between us? Sagittarius moves towards what is correct about the situation. So instead of conflict being a shared space of understanding, it becomes a space of evaluation. And this is where hierarchy enters. Not always intentionally, not always consciously, but structurally. Because if one person is holding the truth and the other person is reacting to it, then the interaction is no longer equal. One is positioned as the one who sees clearly, the other becomes the one being assessed. That is the moment the relationship shifts from connection into imbalance. Partner experience. This is why partners often describe a very specific emotional experience with Sagittarius that is hard to articulate but very consistent. They don't usually say you're lying or you're unclear. Sagittarius says things like, or no, I'm sorry. So the person, so the experiencer. This is like, it's so frustrating. I'm just like now finally like, oh my God, this is what it is. And it's just, you're arguing the principle with them and they don't even follow that principle. It's universal. It's so frustrating. It is very frustrating. I will admit it. All right, so the experiencer. They feel judged. They can't respond without being wrong. And it feels like Sagittarius is always talking above them. Because what they are reacting to is not the content of the truth. It is the position from which the truth is delivered. When Sagittarius speaks from internal certainty without relational attunement, the other person does not feel included in the process. They feel evaluated by it. And even if Sagittarius is factually correct, the partner experiences the interaction as one-sided authority rather than mutual understanding. Over time, this creates tension because the partner is no longer responding to the issue itself. They are responding to the power dynamic inside the conversation. So this dynamic tends to follow a very repeatable sequence. An issue arises, something needs to be addressed, there is friction, misalignment, or conflict. Sagittarius moves quickly into moral or logical framing. They identify what is wrong, what is inconsistent, or what does not hold up. Sagittarius presents that clearly. The partner then reacts, not always to the truth itself, but to how it is being delivered. They may push back, become emotional, or try to explain their side. And this is where the system destabilizes. Because Sagittarius experiences that pushback not as relational feedback, but as resistance to truth. So it doubles down, or they become defensive, or Sagittarius shifts into victim position. I'm just being honest, or I'm the only one saying what's real. And now the conversation is no longer about the original issue at all. It has become truth over emotion, right versus wrong, clarity versus reaction, instead of two people trying to understand each other. So the most common breakdown. Over time, this creates a very specific type of relational fatigue. The partner begins to feel cornered because every response feels like it can be corrected, invalidated because their emotional experience is not being integrated, misunderstood because they are reacting to tone and positioning, not just content. They may start withdrawing, softening their responses, or avoiding conflict altogether, not because the issues are resolved, but because the interaction itself feels imbalanced. And Sagittarius often does not understand why this is happening. From their perspective, they're being honest, being clear, addressing the issue directly. But what they are not saying is that the issue is no longer just the content. It is the structure of how the conversation is happening. So, core issue at the deepest level, the breakdown comes from one shift. Truth becomes positioning instead of connection. Truth is no longer something that is explored together. It becomes something that is delivered from a higher ground. And that moment that happens, the relationship stops being a shared space. It becomes a structured imbalance where one person holds clarity and the other person reacts to it. What actually fixes this? Sagittarius does not need to become less honest. That is not the solution. The solution is changing the entry point of truth. Instead of leading with this is what's happening, it shifts into this is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? Instead of that is not accurate, Sagittarius can say, help me understand how you're seeing. Instead of this doesn't make sense, walk me through how you got there. This does not weaken truth, it relationally grounds it, because truth is no longer a position being delivered. It is a process being shared. And when that shift happens, everything changes. The partner no longer feels judged, they feel included, they no longer feel corrected, they feel understood. And Sagittarius doesn't lose clarity, they gain influence, because now the truth can actually land. So the inner masculine with TI in Jupiter, Sagittarius begins where Gemini ends. They start with internal truth testing. Does this actually hold up? This creates strong internal reasoning, skepticism of external inputs, and independence in belief. But here's the distortion. Truth is formed without full pattern awareness or relational input. So they can become internally certain, externally unrefined, and logically confident, but situationally off. Now, I do want to bring up something else, and I'm probably going to regret trying to scroll through my notes. I just don't know what's going on. My computer is so old. I just think that's probably what it is, to be honest. Okay. I actually found what I was looking for. And I can't scroll down because it is lagging. So I just want to bring up Sagittarius's developmental. Give me one moment here. Developmental key card. It's not really a key card, but it'll look like that when I pull it up. Oh, where are they? I did it by moral load bearing. I think they're after Leo. Where are they at? I just added a crap ton of information in this other like master note. So now I'm going to have to make a smaller version of this master note. Here it is. I found it. I'm actually not where I wanted to. Okay, give me one moment. This is just totally worth it. All right, never mind. I don't want to say never mind. Like, I am going to have to get a new computer. It just sucks so bad. I just can't stand. Like, I'm an Aries rising. I can't stand. There's certain things I'm not very patient on, especially when I'm doing a presentation. Oof, that just has such a wild taste. Yep, I just crashed my notes. My notes keep crashing. It's my computer. It is. It really is. It's spinning and spinning and spinning. All right, well, I can't get in there. Ooh. I'm gonna have to take this computer and it's got my entire life's work on it. It's so, like, I do back up all of my notes and my ebooks on my phone, but it's still so terrifying because I've had this forever. And I am very attached to it, obviously. I can't even, like, look. I can't type in search and then search up. This is so wild. I'm so sorry. This is very frustrating. All right, give up. All right, so anyways, so now we're going to move on to the outer masculine. So then Sagittarius acts not to express identity, but to test it. This is where Sagittarius is radically different. Gemini talks to process, Pisces feels to process, Sagittarius acts to process. The Sagittarius loop. They analyze, act, correct, and repeat. They refine through mistakes, consequences, lived feedback. But here's the problem. They move before full awareness. So action precedes pattern, experience precedes meaning, and correction replaces foresight. Actually, I think I finally found the note I was looking for. The lag is insane. It's my computer, like, for real. I thought it was OBS there for a minute. The only problem is I have 3 different versions of this, and I can't get exactly to where I want because it's just so slow. Well, maybe I can bring up and show you how bad I'm struggling. Okay, so I'm trying to get to my longer form version of the inner and outer masculine and feminine. Yeah, oh well. All right, I'm bailing that operation. Okay, so anyway, the inner feminine is inner child in Mercury. This is where Mercury shows up, but late. Sagittarius does not anticipate early like Aquarius or track multiple paths like Gemini. They understand after the fact. So they move and then they understand after the fact. So this creates hindsight, clarity, delayed pattern recognition. I see it now, awareness. They don't lack intelligence, they lack early trajectory awareness. So they repeat cycles until reality teaches them. They have to learn from their own mistakes, and they will make the same mistake over and 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 over again. Just saying. So the outer feminine is last with Fe inferior. This is the weakest layer. Sagittarius is not naturally attuned to others, prioritize emotional context, or regulate your relational space. So connection becomes delayed, awkward, or avoided. How others experience Sagittarius. You're right, but you missed how that landed. You learn, but only after damage happens. You don't consider people until later. So they're thinking, it comes off as like they only care about themselves, their own. Yeah, it really just comes off as they just care about themselves, honestly. All right, so now we're going to move into Gemini. Sagittarius is the hardest personality to deal with, in my own opinion. Like, physically, mentally, emotionally, overall, very, very difficult. They are very stubborn, very set in their ways, which, anyway, everyone's different. We all have our own issues, right? So, Gemini, relationship issue, interpretation, shifting, and unstable meaning. So, Gemini does not struggle with communication itself. In fact, communication is one of the most active and refined parts of their system. What Gemini struggles with is not expression, but stabilization. Specifically, the ability to hold meaning in place long enough for another person to engage with it. At a structural level, Gemini is built to process reality through real time cognition, Mercury. Gemini does not wait to understand before speaking. They speak in order to understand. So just like Sagittarius, they jump off a cliff and build a parachute on the way down. Gemini, they crack off at the mouth, they go do the thing, and then they realize afterwards, like, whoops, I probably shouldn't have done or said that. All right, so this creates a system that is fast, adaptive, responsive, and highly intelligent in motion. Gemini can take in multiple perspectives, reorganize information instantly, and adjust language as new input arrives. But this is where the relational distortion begins. Because when communication is used as a tool for processing instead of a container for meaning, what is said is not fixed. It is fluid. They are mutable, adaptable, and changeable. So they evolve as the system continues to think. So Gemini is not always speaking from a stable conclusion. They're often speaking from an active, changing process. And that subtle difference is what shifts communication into instability. So, what happens over time? In the beginning, this can feel engaging, exciting, even mentally stimulating. Gemini brings movement into the conversation. It keeps things dynamic, responsive, and alive. There's a sense that ideas are being explored freely, without rigidity or control. It feels open. But over time, especially in close relationships, something begins to break down. Because when conflict arises, Gemini does not naturally slow down to anchor what was said. They continue to process, continues to reinterpret, and continues to adjust the meaning of the conversation as it unfolds. So instead of the conversation stabilizing around a shared understanding, it keeps moving. And this is where the problem begins, because the meaning never fully lands. What was said 5 minutes ago is no longer what is being referenced now. Not because Gemini is intentionally avoiding accountability, but because the system has already moved forward internally. They have already reorganized the information. And that creates a gap between what was said and what is now being acknowledged. Partner experience. This is why partners often describe a very specific kind of confusion with Gemini. Are they going to be Jekyll or are they going to be Hyde? Are they going to be emotional or are they going to be logical? Are they going to be feminine or are they going to be masculine? Like, which side are you going to get in every single moment? So they don't usually say you don't communicate or you don't talk enough. They say things like, I can't pin anything down. Every time I respond, it changes. I feel like I'm chasing the conversation. Because what they are reacting to is not a lack of communication. It is a lack of stability within communication. All right, so now my earbud's dying. All right. Where were we? When Gemini continues to shift interpretation in real time, the other person loses the ability to engage with something concrete. So they are abstract by nature. Gemini is also pragmatic. They don't check in with the group. When making decisions, they go their own way. They do their own thing. I'm going to bring up the key card you're staring at because I can't actually see it. And I haven't printed my new ones off yet. All right. So direct, initiating, and control. So their interaction style is direct. Is that correct? I'm always cross-referencing, and I don't even think that's correct. I think aren't they informative? ENTJ. I'm gonna be super upset. Yeah, they are direct. Why have I forgotten that? There's just so much information about these. Okay, so they are direct. I did not make a mistake. I've probably checked that 5 other times. Huh, that's actually very fascinating, and I don't know why I forgot that. So, direct. I'm gonna have to sit on that one for a while. To me, they're very informative. They're kind of all over the place. Direct, initiating, and control-based. They're direct. How is Gemini direct? Not compared to Aquarius. Sure that way. What are you direct about, Gemini? Let me know. Argue with me here. What are you actually direct about? I would love to know. Your money. There you go. You're direct with your money and your boss babe, boss hog. That's what you're direct with. You're direct with your task management. You're direct with your vacation, traveling everywhere. I mean, yeah, you're direct with your business skills. I'll give you that. It's TE. TE hero. You're direct with management things, I would say. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, yeah. All right. I'll give that to you. All right. So, when Gemini continues to shift interpretation in real time, the other person loses the ability to engage with something concrete. They cannot resolve the issue because the issue itself keeps evolving. This creates a different kind of imbalance, not hierarchy like Sagittarius, but instability, because one person is trying to hold a fixed point while the other is continuously moving it. Over time, this creates exhaustion because the partner is no longer responding to the issue itself. They're trying to keep the conversation from dissolving entirely. So yeah, I guess Gemini, they can be direct about what they want, what they're doing. Not even. Like, I'm sorry, man. I don't know about the females. Like, I do because they were my best friends growing up, but the directness, that's hilarious to me. Climbing the ladder. They're direct about climbing the ladder. There you go. All right. Pisces. There's so many things that I want to say, but I'm not gonna. All right. I'm trying to keep this family friendly. Okay. Okay. All right. Pisces, relational issue, emotional reality shift, and dissolved accountability. So Pisces does not struggle with empathy, care, or emotional depth. In fact, emotional awareness is one of the most dominant forces in the system. What Pisces struggles with is not feeling, it is separation. Specifically, the ability to separate emotional experience from shared reality when pressure enters the interaction. At a structural level, Pisces is built to process through meaning first. Jupiter and Neptune then absorb that meaning emotionally, inner feminine, and only later attempt to differentiate it into clarity with Mercury. This creates a system that experiences reality as something felt, interpreted, and internalized before it is ever defined. So, introversion. Pisces does not encounter events as neutral facts. You know, it's really fascinating that I'm sitting here because Sag and Pisces, you would never guess that they are introverts. It just depends. They can talk to whoever. They're very exploratory. But when it comes to their actually recharging their batteries, they do need alone time. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, they take in a lot and then they have to like withdraw and then gather themselves again. They need to like make sure they're not too much of a hot mess. They just have to chill out for a minute. I'm sorry. It's the greatest. It's just so funny. All right. Pisces does not encounter events as neutral facts. It encounters them as emotional experiences, and that is where the relational distortion begins. I'm like laughing hysterically inside right now. Because when emotional reality becomes primary, it does not stay separate from external reality. It replaces it. And that subtle shift is what dissolves accountability. What happens over time? In the beginning, this can feel incredibly connecting. Pisces is attentive, intuitive, emotionally aware. There is a sense that they feel deeply, that they can understand without needing everything explained. It feels safe to be open around them. But over time, especially in conflict, something begins to shift. Because when tension enters, Pisces does not naturally anchor into what happened, they anchor into how it felt. So instead of the conversation staying grounded in shared events, hello, SE inferior, earth and fall, it moves into internal experience. And once that happens, the structure changes. The issue is no longer what happened between us, it becomes how did this feel inside me? And while that question matters, it replaces the original one instead of sitting alongside it. Partner experience. This is why partners often describe a very specific kind of disorientation with Pisces. They don't usually say you don't care or you're cold. They say things like, I feel like I lost the point. Everything turns into a feeling instead of the issue. I end up comforting you instead of resolving anything. Because what they are reacting to is not emotional depth, it is emotional replacement. When Pisces shifts the conversation fully into feeling, the shared reality begins to dissolve. The original issue becomes secondary, and the emotional experience becomes primary. This creates a kind of imbalance, not instability like Gemini, not hierarchy like Sagittarius, but diffusion. Because one person is trying to resolve something concrete while the other is processing something internal and fluid. What is going on? Like, my hair is driving me nuts. I gotta fix it. I can't. All right. Yeah, I just made it worse. It's like sticking out everywhere. Oh well. All right. So, anyways, because one person is trying to resolve something concrete while the other is processing something internal and fluid. And those two things are no longer aligned. Over time, this creates frustration because the partner is no longer responding to the issue itself. They're managing the emotional field that replaced it. So, core distinction. Need to bring them back up. You get to see me like actually move stuff. Other people, they have this screen where they do it and then they transition it so you don't see all the sloppiness. And yeah, it's whatever. All right, so dang it. Where's my banner at? Why is that? Like, I really wish that they would get their crap together because this is insane. There's just too much clicking around that you have to do in order to move stuff. You know what? After this video, I'm gonna actually email them. What do you call that? It's a what do you call that? It's like a suggestion, but it's also like you can draw it out and have fun with it. And Kaizen. It's a Kaizen. I'm gonna send him a freaking AI image Kaizen, or else I'm gonna draw it in frustration. All right, so Sagittarius, truth becomes positioning. Gemini, meaning becomes unstable. Pisces, reality becomes emotional. And in all three, the conversation leaves the shared ground where resolution is actually possible. All right, so Gemini Pisces are mirrors across the same axis. What you are seeing between them is not random, it is structural. Gemini and Pisces invert Mercury and Jupiter in opposite directions. Excuse me. My nose is running. Okay. Gemini starts with Mercury and then reaches for Jupiter. Pisces starts with Jupiter and then reaches for Mercury. Both are dealing with the same two forces: information versus meaning, movement versus immersion, but they start in opposite places and both loop for the same reason. I don't know why I do this to myself every day. All right, but they start in opposite places and both loop for the same reason. Neither anchors early enough. Gemini begins outward. Gemini engages, speaks, organizes, and processes in real time. Outer masculine leads. Mercury keeps the system moving. Then Gemini turns into pattern tracking, then back outward again into exploration and sampling. And only very late does it attempt to stable identity. So the Gemini loop is engage, pattern, explore, repeat. Identity never fully stabilizes because Mercury keeps the system moving and Jupiter keeps expanding options. Gemini gets stuck in endless processing and endless possibility. Gemini understands everything, but they do not necessarily know what they stand on. That is why Gemini can look brilliant, responsive, and mentally alive while still feeling unanchored. The problem is not intelligence. The problem is that identity comes after everything else. Pisces begins in the opposite place. Pisces moves inward first. They absorb, merge, dissolve, and interprets through meaning before separation ever becomes stable. Inner feminine leads. Jupiter and Neptune expands the field. Mercury stays internal and late. And the system moves through absorption, harmony, regulation, private meaning making, and only then forced outer action. So the Pisces loop is absorb, harmonize, withdraw, and repeat. Boundaries never fully stabilize because Jupiter keeps expanding meaning and Mercury stays internal instead of anchoring shared reality early. Pisces gets stuck in endless feeling and endless understanding. Pisces feels everything, understands everyone, but struggles to define where it ends. So Gemini fragments identity through movement, while Pisces dissolves identity through absorption. Different expression, same structural problem. So that is a real connection between them both. Both systems fail at the same point. Inner masculine anchoring. Gemini has too much movement to anchor, too many options to choose, and identity comes after everything else. Pisces has too much absorption to separate, too much empathy to define self, and identity dissolves into others. Gemini's internal question becomes, I understand everything, but what do I actually stand on? Pisces' internal question becomes, I feel everything, but where do I end? This is why Mercury without anchoring produces fragmentation, while Jupiter without anchoring produces dissolution. This is also why Gemini and Pisces misread each other so easily. Man, my throat is killing me. Gemini experiences Pisces as deep but unclear, emotional but undefined, meaningful but hard to pin down. Gemini looks at Pisces and thinks, why won't you just say what you mean? Pisces experiences Gemini as sharp but detached, intelligent but inconsistent, expressive but ungrounded. Pisces looks at Gemini and thinks, why do you keep moving instead of feeling? Gemini speaks before feeling. Pisces feels before separating. Gemini explores before choosing. Pisces merges before defining. Gemini thinks externally. Pisces feels internally. Gemini lacks anchoring through movement. Pisces lacks anchoring through absorption. So once that is clear, Sagittarius enters not as a random third sign, but as the completion of the triangle. Now you do not just have Gemini and Pisces, you have the full Mercury-Jupiter distortion triangle. Gemini is Mercury dominant with Jupiter destabilizing. Pisces is Jupiter dominant and Mercury internalized. Sagittarius is Jupiter dominant with Mercury delayed and corrective. All three are dealing with the same two forces. So Sagittarius is not scattered like Gemini and does not dissolve like Pisces. Sagittarius is trial-based truth. Sagittarius does not trust ideas. the way Gemini does, and it does not trust feelings the way Pisces does. Sagittarius trusts what survives reality. So Sagittarius begins where Gemini ends. They start with internal truth testing, inner masculine leads. It asks, does this actually hold up? That creates strong internal reasoning, skepticism of external inputs, and independence in belief. But it also creates distortion because truth is formed before full pattern awareness and before relational input. So Sagittarius can become internally certain, externally unrefined, and logically confident, but situationally off. So from there, Sagittarius moves into outer masculine. They act to test truth. This is where Sagittarius becomes radically different from the other two. Gemini talks to process, Pisces feels to process. Sagittarius acts to process. Its loop becomes analyze, act, correct, repeat. It refines through mistakes, consequences, and lived feedback. But because action comes before full awareness, experience precedes meaning. Correction replaces foresight, and trajectory awareness comes late. That is why Sagittarius does not necessarily lack intelligence. Sagittarius lacks early pattern awareness. They understand after the fact. They get hindsight, clarity, delayed pattern recognition, and the classic I see it now realization. And because outer feminine is weakest, emotional attunement and relational regulation are delayed as well. This is why others often experience Sagittarius as you're right, but you missed how that landed, or you'll learn, but only after damage happens. Okay, so I'm now getting into more chopped up notes. Oops, I just flew right by it. Oh, man, my computer. All right, so Gemini engages, patterns, explores, repeats. They get stuck in possibilities. Pisces absorbs, harmonizes, withdraws, and repeats. Stuck in meaning. Sagittarius analyzes, acts, corrects, and then repeats. Same root, problem. All three delay inner masculine anchoring. Stable identity, truth, integration. Inner masculine anchoring. But differently. So Gemini never selects, Pisces never separates, and Sagittarius never anticipates. All right, I'm gonna have to get a little bit more comfortable. And hopefully not coughing in the mic. My nose is starting to run. Hardcore allergies. All right, so Mercury, Jupiter distortion. Gemini's Mercury is overactive and external. Pisces, Mercury is internalized. Sagittarius, Mercury is delayed correction. Gemini, Jupiter is destabilizing expansion. Pisces, Jupiter is overwhelming and dissolving. Sagittarius's Jupiter is dominant truth testing. So Gemini thinks too fast to anchor. Pisces feels too much to separate. Sagittarius acts too early to foresee. So reintegration path. Gemini needs to build identity before movement. They need to choose, hold, and commit. Pisces needs to build boundaries before merging. Separate, define, and contain. Sagittarius needs to build awareness before action. Pause, anticipate, and track patterns earlier. So Gemini learns through thinking, Pisces learns through feeling, Sagittarius learns through consequences. But all three must learn how to anchor before their dominant process takes over. Gemini explores truth, Pisces dissolves into truth, Sagittarius tests truth. But none of them are stable in truth until they learn to hold it. All right, so Sagittarius moral reframing through authority. All right, so I want to hammer this out a little more. I'm going longer than I thought I would. All right, Sagittarius. All right, so what's happening structurally? Inner masculine, you've got TI and Jupiter. I know it's true. Outer masculine, SE, delivers it directly. Inner feminine, with NI child, not fully tracking implications yet. And outer feminine, FE inferior, not reading emotional impact. So what comes out is truth positioning without relational awareness. So the distortions, Sagittarius doesn't just argue a point, they frame the situation morally. This is what growth looks like. This is what accountability is. This is what you should be doing. And that sounds correct, but here is the move. They position themselves as aligned with truth, which implicitly positions you as misaligned. So the trap, when you respond, they shift, not the facts, the frame. Now it becomes, why are you reacting like this? I was just trying to help. You're taking it the wrong way. Gah! If I could get $1 for every time one Sagittarius alone said this to me, I'm going to repeat this. They are going to respond with, if you are saying something, that doesn't even matter. They just are doing this at all times. They're going to ask you. So how you know that they're morally framing? These are some of the telltale signs, the questions. They're going to say, why are you reacting like this? I was just trying to help. You're taking it the wrong way. FE sensitivity. So what just happened? Moral authority to victim position. That's the flip. Why this happens? Because they trust their internal logic, TI, expanded by Jupiter, belief, moral certainty, but lack FE containment, relational accountability. Relational accountability. So they don't track how their delivery creates pressure. How it feels to others. Others feel cornered, judged, then blamed for responding. You put me in a position, then I acted like I created it. Oh, gracious sakes. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and just thank gosh I can see it. All right. I love Sagittarius, don't get me wrong. It's fun. They're fun. I love Sag, but like when you're in an actual relationship with this energy romantically, it's very, very difficult. Whole different ball game. Friendship, whole different ball game compared to romantic relationships. All right, so Gemini, moral reframing through language. Gemini does not trap through authority. They do it through shifting definitions mid-conversation. So the structure, the outer masculine with Mercury and TE. Rapid communication, inner feminine and I, multiple interpretations. Outer feminine, Jupiter and SE, expands possibilities. Inner masculine, FI, weak, no stable anchor. So the distortion doesn't hold one frame. They cycle through many. That's not what I meant. You misunderstood. That's not what I was saying. And technically, they're not lying. They're reframing in real time. So the trap, the conversations keep moving, but nothing lands because they can outpace accountability with interpretation. So how it feels to others. Confused, destabilized, like you can't pin anything down. Every time I respond, the meaning changes. Alrighty, Pisces. All right, so Pisces, moral reframing through emotion. Pisces does not argue or redefine. They shift through emotional positioning. So the structure, you have the inner feminine with Jupiter and Neptune, absorbs everything. Outer feminine harmonizes with FE. Inner masculine, Mercury and TI, internal only. Outer masculine, SE is weak, avoids confrontation. The distortion, Pisces reframes by moving into emotional reality instead of factual clarity. The trap, you bring something up, they respond with hurt, overwhelm, confusion, and withdrawal. Now the focus shifts from what happened to how they feel. Result, you end up softening, backing off, and questioning yourself, how it feels to others. Like you can't address the issue, like you're now responsible for their emotions. I brought up a problem and somehow become the problem. Alright, so I am like totally regretting like adjusting the size of these. I couldn't exactly remember, like, this is just like notes that are like more random, like not as organized, and so I am like 32 pages deep and I'm not going to look ahead at this point. I am trying to get through as much info as I possibly can. All right. I don't even know what to do with myself anymore. It's funny. All right. Whatever. Gemini. Okay, so yeah, it's just where it's going to be at the moment. So Sagittarius, moral authority, how they reframe, I'm right, you're misaligned. Gemini, linguistic shift, how they reframe, that's not what this means anymore. Pisces, emotional field, this feels bad, so something's wrong with you. So the core mechanism, all three, avoid stable inner masculine, accountability in the moment. Brant. All right, so instead of saying I did this, they move into meaning, interpretation, and emotion. All right, so how to dismantle it as my computer freaks out. With Sagittarius, stay on the original point. Don't move it into a moral frame. So example, we're not discussing growth. We're discussing what you said. Gemini, lock the definition. Example, that's not what you said earlier. Let's stay with that. Pisces, separate emotion from event. Example, I hear how you feel. I'm talking about what happened. Sagittarius controls through moral positioning, Gemini controls through interpretation shifting, and Pisces controls through emotional redirection. And none of them are doing it consciously most of the time. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And you stop getting pulled into it. All right, so I've got more. I'm tired. My computer. I'm going to sit here and figure out my computer, honestly, because it's not anything to do with memory storage. The settings are decent. I'm not really sure what's going on with my computer. So I'm going to allow myself some time to figure that out. And anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.